Last week, we spoke to playwright Mark St. Germain about his new play, The Happiest Man on Earth, which makes its world premiere tonight and runs through June 17th at Barrington Stage Company's St. Germain Stage in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. The Happiest Man on Earth is based on the memoir of the same name by Eddie Jaku and starring Kenneth Tigar as Eddie. Shortly after earning a Harvard PhD in German, Kenneth Tigar was offered an acting job with a Viennese theater group. The experience began his transition from the world of academia to the world of theater. Since then, he has become a very familiar face in film and on television, one of our great character actors. His credits span the distance from the Lethal Weapon movies to The Good Wife to The Avengers. Here he is as a werewolf in Barney Miller from 1976.
You feeling all right, Mr. Kopechny?
I don't know. I'm starting to feel strange.
You look fine. Don't you look fine?
I don't know.
Why don't you go take a look?
Not me. It happens slowly. Sometimes it's hard to notice at first.
Take it easy.
It's starting to itch.
Oh, that's normal around here.
My legs is wriggling.
No, don't do that. That just aggravates it. Don't.
I feel hot. And my teeth hurt. And my tongue's sweating.
Try not to talk.
I gotta get out of here. I need air. Let me out of the cage.
Hey, look, man, we can't do that.
Let me out of the cage.
How about some water?
I don't want any water. I want to go home. I gotta get some sleep, and then I gotta go to work.
Barney.
Kenneth Tigar in Barney Miller, a wonderful episode, a classic episode from 1976. Even better, he is going to be starring, starting tonight, The Happiest Man on Earth at the St. Germain Theater in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Kenneth Tigar to the roundtable. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, although it was very strange listening to me way back then.
Well, I told this story to Mark when he was here last week. It's an absolutely true story, but I was working on I was reading the play, I was working on the interview with Mark. And as I was doing this, I was watching TV, and I have been binging Barney Miller. And then there you were. And I was like, oh, it's the same guy. That is so cool. And it's just an amazing, it was an amazing coincidence for me. And because that is a classic television scene. It
is definitely a show worth binging, Barney Miller. It was an extraordinary show for years. I mean, the quality of it, the comedy of it, and the people that worked on it were just spectacular.
I mean, it's hard to, I don't know. You tell me. Is it hard to remember what that day was like from nearly 50 years ago of
Actually,
shooting that scene?
The day that we shot it is very easy to remember because it was one of the stranger days of my life. Barney at that point was it was in one of the early years, and they were still working with a live audience at that point. But Barney always ran late, and one of the reasons was that they had a very small writing staff, and so they really didn't have their scripts and everything way out in advance the way many shows do. I mean, that was one of the reasons why the quality was so good. It was because they had a very small staff, and they all knew how to do it really well, but they never got way ahead. And so because of that, there were times when we would, certainly with that show, we would get in front of a studio audience, and we hadn't really had time to do it all technically before the audience came in. So they did it with the audience, and then we had to redo much of the show after the audience left because the cameras hadn't been in the right places. We hadn't had enough rehearsal time with the cameras for it. And so we went that night until 3:00 in the morning shooting that episode. It was one of the longest days of my life. And there I was at, 2:30 in the morning, hanging onto the bars of the cage, howling to the moon, which you really could practically see in the studio at that point. And after that, Barney Miller, the next season, they went without an audience because they knew that they couldn't do it technically anymore.
And it's fascinating because, I mean, that show was known for going so long and also, but I would think as an actor, I mean, giving it your all and being able to, pardon the expression, ham it up, I mean, it's just, you're brilliant in that.
Well, thank you. It was fabulous, and it was an amazing experience for me, partly because I never really expected that sort of thing to happen. I had done one episode of Barney before then, and I had just arrived in Los Angeles, and I met the casting director, and she took me by the hand and said, "Come with me," and brought me down to meet the producer, and they put me in the show sort of immediately, and I was playing a man who'd been mugged by a little old lady. And it was a wonderful part, but, sort of a little milquetoast kind of guy. And then the next year, we got a call, and they were just offering this part to me. I didn't have to audition or anything like that. They remembered me. I came in, and the part was so completely different. And I thought, how did I get so lucky to do this? And but the first day of rehearsal, they still didn't have a full script. And I come in the second half of the episode. They only had the first half written. So they told me what I was going to do, that I was going to come in and I was going to be a werewolf, sort of like Ionesco's Rhinoceros, where the man turns into a rhinoceros. And I thought, all right, well, how do I do that? There's no script. But so I set to work thinking, well, what do I do? And it was great fun. And every time after that, when I came in, the scripts were wild. When I would come in for the first day of rehearsal for an episode, there was one day Hal Linden looked at me and said, "Oh, it's going to be one of those scripts." But, you figure, how lucky do you get, to be able to do wild material like this? And that kind of thing happens every once in a while. And I must admit, it's happening again right now. How lucky I am to be able to do this script of Mark's. It's a wonderful, wonderful script, and I feel very blessed to be able to do it.
I mean, Mark is, I just think, is one of our great American playwrights. He's an amazing man. He's told so many incredible stories, and not only that is just a great guy. But I'm curious as to what it is like to play somebody like Eddie Jaku, and this because this is an incredible story that you tell, and it has its terror and it has its humor, but it is certainly an emotional ride.
It certainly is. Look, the people that had to go through the Holocaust, it's very difficult for us to comprehend what that horror was. And there are people across the world in similar situations in countries not as lucky as we are here, and even in this country, there are people who are the objects of hate and derision and all sorts of terror. But for most of us, it's very difficult to grasp what that experience is. And it really happened. I mean, Hitler was not just a cartoon character. The Nazis were not just things out of movies. They were real people knocking on real people's doors, dragging them out into the street, and beating them and killing them. And to try and bring that sense of reality to people is quite extraordinary. And I think Mark has done it well in the play. And it's not just a horror story. It is the story of someone who survived, and survived very well, and managed to overcome it, and is able to to deal with it in such a way that it brings humanity and a kind of love to the experience. Not that you love the experience, but you can put it into a context and see how a human being can grow from an adverse situation. And it's that positive part of it that I think many people will find very uplifting in the play. It's not just barbed wire and being, gored by Nazis.
We have about 2 minutes, and I'm just curious. We're hours away from the first time you do this in front of an audience, and what will change from 11:56 today to how you feel about it at 11:56 tomorrow?
Well, needless to say, you want the audience to get it. We did an invited dress rehearsal last night, so I did have a bit of an audience last night, and the audience, they get it. What you want is for people to understand and live through the experience with you. That's what I would like, and that seems to be what's happening. People are fascinated by the story. And they are viscerally, they have an emotional experience. They seem to be having an emotional experience. And that's what I want. The difference between rehearsals and the performance is, especially in this play, is that the audience is part of the experience. And they're not just onlookers. They don't say anything, but they take part emotionally in it. And you can feel it in the room. Yesterday, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience doing the show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot of people coming and experiencing Mark's magnificent play.
I can't wait to see it. I look forward to seeing your performance. You talk about emotional experiences, and one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on is because that episode that I played or a piece of earlier was my father's favorite episode of Barney Miller. He has passed, and it was always when that came on, it was always such a great moment to share that with him, and it brought back a lot of great memories. So I thank you for the beautiful work that you do, and I can't wait to see this beautiful work at the St. Germain Stage.
Thank you so much. Nice
Kenneth,
talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark St. Germain's play, The Happiest Man on Earth, stars Kenneth Tigar. It makes its world premiere tonight through June 17th at the Barrington Stage Company's St. Germain Stage. You're listening to the